Hi, everybody. I'll promise I will get to the what is Ecosphere Studies question, but I'm going to start somewhere else. I'm going to start here, actually, in this barn. So twice in the past 2 months, I've sat with students in a circle in this barn. It's been a lot less full of people. There have been undergraduate students, almost all of them first-time visitors to the Land Institute, almost all of them women, incidentally, in both these settings. And we've come to this barn at the close of Ecosphere Studies workshops to share what we call reflections in the round. The human groups are small, and the building and sky and the bug songs on the breeze are large, but the place doesn't feel empty. It feels full of reality and possibility. I've been starting these workshops that I teach with a trip to Kanza, Prairie. And I always begin those field trips, which I think of more like immersion experiences, with an acknowledgement of the Ka or Kanza or Kanza people whose homelands we're in. So I also want to give gratitude to all of the Siouan and Caddoan peoples who continue to live in relationship with these Smoky Hills, this watershed of the Smoky Hill River that we're all in here now. So thank you. Thanks. At the Kanza Prairie, as we walk through the trees in that riparian area and then out onto the grass, as the path leads the land to open before us and invites us to open into the land, I tell students about the cooperative and competitive plant community. We identify some of those plants, we look up their uses in books, we read poems about them. We stoop, peering down and reaching out to touch, and we start to be able to differentiate the sea of grass. I tell them about the long-term ecological research happening at that site, and we talk about adaptations to disturbances, adaptations to grazing and fire, but not to the sharp blade of the plow. We try to read history on the landscape. We try to fill in the blank. The word prairie from the French means meadow. As artist Liz Anna Kozik writes and draws in her Prairie comics, they're incredible, meadow historically describes a grassy area maintained for mowing hay for livestock feed. Faced with something new, the French named it for something familiar. They labeled it as a commodity for consumption. Prairie is ecosystem, prairie is personified, prairie is buoyant, prairie is almost gone, prairie is hanging on. The next day, in these workshops, back here at the Land Institute, I draw on Kanza to tell the students I work with about Kernza. I name nature as measure, model, and teacher of perenniality and diversity. We look at the roots banner, we stretch our imaginations of life deeper underground into that tangle of roots and soil and rock and spaces for air and water, that land upon which we all depend and upon which we here are working to understand. We stand, the students and I, at the Wahab Overlook, right by where you parked, the top of a little finger of prairie, just the tip of a vital body. And a noun from our Ecosphere Studies collaborator, geographer Omar Tesdell, echoes in my mind. This is a remnant. And then these students and I, we walk down the hill, down the Wahab, into the research plots. We visit a Kernza and alfalfa biculture. We see a silphium patch, which sometimes is buzzing and sometimes is silent. I tell them about plant breeding, or at least what I witness of it here. The search for desirable difference, the precision and tracking across generations, and the commitments of proximity and time. Everyone working here at the Land Institute and in partnership with us around the planet participates in what we might understand as an economy of attention. We pay our attention to this mission, to the myriad tasks necessary to transform agriculture. We pay our attention to all kinds of plants and soils and ecological processes, and to the human social processes of culture and philosophy and language. Ecology and society are both complex and complexly interrelated. Paying attention requires the labor of care. And we know that care work isn't really valued much, if at all, by the current dominant monetary economy. But care work is, I think, the work of the commons, and it offers its own rewards. The rewards include knowledge and tools and tasty food and drink, and the rewards include community and possibility and affection. Which brings us back into this barn. In August, the students with me in the circle here were mostly students of fashion, interior design, textile and apparel merchandising, and architecture at Oklahoma State University. They came to the Land Institute to seek creative inspiration for their work and to learn about biomimicry and sustainable design as part of the short course that I developed with the wonderful Dr. Cosette Armstrong, who's I think here with us. You can see some of the amazing concepts these students went on to design on posters that are on display out on the east side of the art gallery building that you might have walked by. But before they made those, when we had just finished up all these trips and tours, and we were sitting in this barn right here on bales, trying to reflect, I asked the students to try and to put into words what they'd experienced in the Ecosphere Studies workshop. And one of the students sitting right here said, I'm going to quote my paraphrase from my notes, "I'm learning to think differently. I'm learning to think differently versus getting stuck on the path that we're already on. Thinking differently can be applied to industry and to anything in life." Last weekend, just a week ago exactly, the students in the circle here in the barn were honor students from Bethany College, just down the road in Lynchburg, Kansas, my alma mater. Their majors ranged from chemistry and biology to psychology and education to music, literature, and art. And they came as part of an interdisciplinary Ecosphere Studies seminar that I designed on the theme of prairie plant stories. Many of them brought their own experiences growing up in rural Kansas, where we're more likely to call the land a pasture than a prairie. So we were sitting in a circle back over there where I see my collaborator, Bill Vitek. We're sitting over in that part of the barn. And one of the students from a small farming community talked about her plans to return after graduation to spend the rest of her life there in a farming household. She said that she enjoyed visiting the Kanza and talking about deeper questions, but that the class actually started making more sense when we came to the Land Institute, because what's happening here is applied. There were some nods of agreement in the group. Things are starting to come together. But others also reiterated the importance of the prairie immersion for its beauty and for us to sense how little we know in the face of how much we are responsible for. If prairie is, and we try to fill in that blank, prairie is mystery, said another student in the back of the barn. So at this point, I'll return and circle back to fill in some more blanks. Ecosphere Studies is, recall that the Land Institute started as an innovative experimental school. Ecosphere Studies is the programmatic home for that part of the Land Institute's work today. Ecosphere Studies is the multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, whatever, it's definitely multisyllabic research effort to fundamentally change the way we understand this planet and our place on it so we can start acting accordingly. Ecosphere Studies is our attempt to replace the annual monocultures of contemporary education and culture with the spirit of perennial polycultures. Ecosphere Studies is where we assemble to investigate what we need to know to help create a decent human future in which people are well-nourished in minds as well as bodies, where we seek to spread that knowledge through educational collaborations, and where we help write the stories needed to solve the problem of agriculture and civilization by solving for patterns, not of our own creation, as Wes said. So the we that I'm using here is me, but it's also an intrepid and growing network of thinkers, doers, makers, and seekers. Ecosphere Studies is a community of folks in the natural sciences, social sciences, humanities, and arts, along with artists and writers and activists and practitioners outside of academic institutions. Our intergenerational leadership team continues, and I'm really grateful to have such brilliant colleagues as Bill Vitek and Wes Jackson, along with our Land Institute President Fred Utze, our collaborator Bob Jensen. I'm also happy to tell you that in this past year, we were able to significantly expand our Ecosphere Studies program, thanks to new support via something called the New Perennials Project, which is housed at the Rockefeller Family Foundation. So I'm thankful for that. And this capacity increase is what allowed me to transition from that previous postdoctoral fellow role to become program director, and allowed us to hire an additional staffer. So I'm going to ask Carl to stand up. So this is Carl Bowden, our Ecosphere Studies associate. Just a little bit about Carl, and I hope you'll say hi. You may have already met him. He's been working at registration. He'll be there again tomorrow, but please come and talk to him. Carl grew up in Salina. He currently resides in nearby Gypsum. He has bachelor's degrees from Kansas State University in Fisheries, Wildlife, and Conservation Biology, and in Natural Resources and Environmental Sciences. He's worked with K-State, actually at the Kanza, to help conduct field studies, and he's been an intern here at the Land Institute. Carl brings a lot of keen dedication to our work, and I'm just really thrilled to have as part of the team. So the program pathways that Ecosphere Studies is journeying down, or maybe up, to use the hill metaphor, and we call these experiments, include teaching and workshops, as I've described, and figuring out how to evaluate the results of that teaching. We are analyzing what places, experiences, and activities catalyze perspective transformation. Some other recent educational activities include an eco-writing course that I taught in the spring at Kansas Wesleyan University here in Salina, and a course about the perennial turn in ag and culture that Bill Vitek, the philosopher, and our collaborator is currently co-teaching as a visiting scholar at Middlebury College. We look forward to offering more workshops in the coming year here in Kansas and in collaboration with communities and other places. Another experiment in process is intellectual grounding research for understanding the human dimensions of transforming agriculture. So last March, Ecosphere Studies hosted a seminar with visiting scholars here, beginning to discuss the necessity and possibility of a new ecospheric economic order. Then our July conference, which was titled Groundbreaking, Agriculture in the Ecosphere, focused on diverse perspectives on agricultural past and futures in our home globe. Humans do have the opportunity to take new and ground-building agricultural paths with perennials grown in polycultures. But to actually move in that new direction, I contend there is work to be done. There are ways of knowing that need to be remembered and brought with us on the journey. And there is knowledge that needs to be learned and made anew. You'll be able to hear tomorrow from two of our wonderful Ecosphere Studies Conference presenters here at Prairie Festival, Taylor Keene and Liz Carlisle. And to just give a sense of the breadth of the analysis of what we're doing in terms of our summer conference, I just wanted to name and thank a few more, I can't even do all of them, some of the other Ecosphere Studies Conference presenters from this summer. Historian Kathleen Smythe, agronomist Jane Mount Pleasant, political scientist Sherry Breen, who's here with us, legal scholar John Head, writer Julianne Warren, economist Lisi Kroll, educator Leah Baines, and our own TLI scientist you've heard from, Stan Cox and Tim Cruz. And there's more. And all of the participants, including other Land Institute staff and board members and incredible interns, helped shape this conference this summer that featured, I think, some really powerful experiences of learning as well as unlearning. We hold in common values of justice and equity that we must hold ourselves and each other accountable to as we continue to build social communities. In addition, our conference field trips this summer to Farrell Ranch, to Heartland Prairie Cemetery, and to the Land Institute's own Marty Bender Nature Area along this lovely newly made trail helped us reassert the ecological context of the land community. As a result of the conference, we're planning a book, one of several Ecosphere Studies book projects that are in the work. So I'm outlining that manuscript now, and I'm outlining it as a narrative and pedagogical collection of essays, what we hope will be an accessible teaching tool that uses stories to draw students both outside and inside of educational institutions into ecospheric, perennial, and polycultural paths of inquiry towards those new agricultural communities we envision in the future. I want to share a quote from Montanan Dave Oyen, who I think is also here with us. He wrote this decades ago in his column in the Sun-Times. Agriculture can be the model for a sane and a safe lifestyle. That's quoted on page 52 of Lentil Underground, if you need to go underline it. Agriculture can be the model for a sane and a safe lifestyle. Translating that model into action, articulating and developing our theory and praxis of change towards sanity and for the sake of safety is another large part of our ecospheric work ahead. And we're planning a gathering at Middlebury College in Vermont this winter with some of our many partners to help root that work and start articulating that theory of change. There are a few other startup experiments that I'd like to update you on. One is about building community and regional resilience. So the Land Institute, including Ecosphere Studies, is participating in an emerging partnership with the Nature Conservancy and the Kansas City Native Plants Initiative. We are 3 organizations bringing together our unique skills and collective expertise in agriculture, conservation science, and community engagement to address systemic barriers to cultural change and to start creating a shared vision of a regenerative heartland, beginning with the food systems of Kansas and Missouri. Another experiment involves working with practitioners in the creative and healing arts, and we are planning 2019 gatherings to engage and learn with these communities. So these plans are informed in part by some public events and conversations about human-plant relationships that I had the good fortune to do over the course of the last year with the Kansas City Design Center's West Bottoms Reborn project and with Claire Pentecost, our fabulous Prairie Festival artist, in her role as artist in residence at Garfield Park Conservatory in Chicago. Next month, in October, the Land Institute is going to be hosting an artist in residence, artist Owen Brown. He'll be here for 2 weeks to create an ecospheric sculpture installation titled Units of Measurement. I'll give you a hint that one of those units of measurement has to do with Kernza. So there is more information about this project beginning to be available, and we are inviting and welcoming your involvement in terms of community engagement. So please look for a flyer over at the bookstore or the registration table, or find me and Carl to learn more about this and how you might be involved in helping us install this project. In the healing arts, I recently had the pleasure of getting to know a place called the Institute for Human and Planetary Health. It's an incredible name, at Doane University in Nebraska, and I think their director, Dr. Amanda McKinney, is here with us. I see her. Hi, Amanda. And I want to thank Amanda and her team for helping inspire what's going to be my conclusion here, looking ahead and reflecting on some of our engagement with the healing arts. I've come to believe that it's most accurate to think of healing like learning, like paying attention, as a practice, something to be tried over and over again, something to do, something to hold on to. So my parting gift here is a poem that I composed. It does not rhyme. It is 7 perennial polyculture practices. And each of these practices is a set, pairing a command and a question, invitation, inquiry. And really, these are just the pieces of advice that I give myself. So the title of this poem is How To. How to. 1. Hold on. Touch the ground and stay there. When the wind moves through you, you'll make a song. Hold on longer. Take the longest shot. Play the longest game you can, even in an era of emergency and urgency. When a single leaf finds its way to you, how long can you hold it in your hands, in your mind's eye? Number 2, relieve yourself of certainty. Ambiguity, curiosity, surprise, these are the sweet and sacred gifts of stumbling into a patch beyond what you were sure of. All roots seek. Where do you even begin? Can you trace the source and the source of the source? Can you get back any farther than mystery? 3. A perennial is not a perennial is not a perennial, Wes intones. There are lots of ways to try and trace the variable lengths of the inimitable. Seek, value, and sort those perspectives. What would it take for you to learn all the names of just one person, one plant? Lifetimes? Where could you find such fluency? 4. Be patience. Patience as in P-A-T-I-E-N-T-S. We are impatient here. Be patient. Let the sun and clouds be tilted cups that pour into you. Take the vitamins, eat the meals, allow the medicine to work. Rest through the cold and nap through the drought. Be patient in order to be photosynthesizing agents. Since we live only and always in relationship, acted upon and acting, what qualities of relationship do you want? 5. Compete together. This is a matter of survival. As the line goes, be the trickster, not the martyr. Play out your strategy and be opportunistic. Beautiful collaborations are built of friction and tension. Shouldn't you greet every so-called weed along the way who has found their niche to fill? 6. Risk movement. Shift your position. Unlearn normal. Imagine otherwise, as Daniel Heath Justice says, and ship the seed of an idea. Actually try to adaptively move. Have you done this before? When has your mind ever really changed? Can you do the new again? 7. Play respect. Remember what you were once so proud to display. Remember what you foraged and squirreled away to store in secret places, the acorns hidden under the bed. When your child asks you to play, won't you? Thanks.